She is a woman in body, but a child and soul, a girl, wrapped in the illusion of maturity. You looked into her eyes and saw mystery, but what you missed was immaturity, clothed in charm. Carl Jung called her the Puella Eternal, the eternal girl, the one who never stepped out of the garden of dreams and into the storm of life. She does not confront pain, she dances around it. She does not build, she imagines. And you, shaped by duty and fire, entered her world thinking you were rescuing her. But in truth, you were sacrificing your strength to a ghost who refused to stand on her own. You did not love her. You loved the idea of completing her. She floated through life, untouched by consequence, allergic to structure, mistaking chaos for freedom. You called it innocence. It was evasion. You thought her unpredictability was passion, but it was fear in disguise, fear of being ordinary, fear of facing herself. The modern world rewards her illusion, praising spontaneity, exalting sensitivity, staking her inability to commit for empowered independence. And you mistook her emotional storms for depth, her fragility for femininity. You weren't enchanted, you were ensnared, because a man without inner clarity will always confuse a beautiful disaster for destiny. You gave her stability, hoping she'd meet you with gratitude. Instead, she sank deeper into herself, expecting you to carry the burden of her undeveloped soul. But Jung warned us, what we do not make conscious becomes our fate. And now, your fate is entanglement with a woman who never left the mirror stage. You build a life, she chases a feeling. You seek meaning. She escapes into moods. You call it love. But this is not love. It is regression. And if you do not awaken now, you will not only lose her, you will lose yourself. You mistook her softness for tenderness, but what you were witnessing was her refusal to grow. The Puella does not seek partnership, she seeks shelter, a place to remain untouched by the sharp edges of reality. When life demands resilience, she dissolves into tears. When decisions must be made, she vanishes into dreams. Her entire world is a performance of vulnerability, a theater of need disguised as connection. And you, forged by responsibility, confused her dependency for devotion. You became her shield, her compass, her father, and her confessor. But no man survives long in that role without erasing himself. Carl Jung knew what this pattern meant. He saw how the Puella drains the masculine spirit, not through evil intent, but through unconscious resistance to wholeness. She never met her shadow. She never sat with pain long enough to integrate it. She romanticized her wounds instead of healing them. And so she drifts eternally becoming, but never becoming whole. The tragedy is not only hers, because while you were busy holding her together, your own structure began to crack. You stopped leading, you started managing. And in the name of love, you've lost the clarity that makes love even possible. A man who dances with the Puella too long forgets his mission. He trades sovereignty for sympathy, vision for volatility. He begins to think that emotional turbulence is the price of passion, that to be a man is to endlessly absorb the storms of a woman who never learned to stand. But that is not love, it is codependence dressed in poetry. You were not born to parent her inner child. You were born to walk beside a woman who has faced herself, who brings calm instead of chaos, who mirrors your strength, not your savior complex. There is a cruel alchemy at work when a man sacrifices himself at the altar of a woman who has not yet been born within. You thought you were building a future, but in truth, you were dragging her through a present she refused to enter. The Puella does not want the weight of time, the grit of growth, the solemn ritual of responsibility. She wants endless beginnings, romantic chaos, the thrill of being rescued over and over again. And when you no longer save her with the same sparkle in your eyes, she will say you've changed. But it is she who never did. Jung did not write of these archetypes to condemn, but to awaken. The man who remains blind to the Puella archetype will not only misunderstand her, he will misunderstand himself. He will believe that love is martyrdom, that masculinity means management, and that maturity is something to be postponed for the sake of harmony. But the truth is simple and brutal. Every time you ignore the signs, every time you rescue instead of lead, every time you trade your purpose for her peace, you betray the man you were becoming. Not because you were weak, but because you were never taught the difference between compassion and self-betrayal. So now you must decide. Not whether she will grow, that is not your task, but whether you will. Whether you will step back from the fantasy and into the fire of your own becoming. Because the Puella will not follow you into the depths. She lives in the clouds, in the mirror, in the unformed dream of love that costs nothing. If you wish to be whole, you must leave behind those who fear the weight of wholeness. And when you do, when you walk not with resentment, but with reverence for your path, you will finally understand. The point was never to fix her, it was to find yourself. Do you understand now why you felt so exhausted? It wasn't just her moods, her tears, her chaos. It was the weight of being the only adult in a two-person play. The Puella Eterna never sought partnership. She sought protection from herself. She wanted a man to absorb the friction of life, while she remained cloaked in innocence, a girl untouched by consequence. And you, trained by culture to rescue, not to recognize, you believed this was love, that her need was proof of your worth, that her wounds gave you a role. But Jung warned us. What you refuse to bring into consciousness becomes your fate. And so, again and again, you found yourself drawn to the very women who drain you, confuse you, undo you. But here's the truth. Most men never dare say aloud. Her beauty cannot repay your brokenness. Her dependence does not equal devotion. Her longing for safety is not the same as loving you. She may cry in your arms, whisper how she cannot live without you. But she will still leave when your strength becomes too real, when your clarity exposes her illusions. Because the Puella cannot love the man who sees her. Clearly she fears him. For he is a mirror, and she has spent her life avoiding mirrors that do not flatter. The moment you stop rescuing her, she says you are cruel. But it is not cruelty, it is your awakening. This is your liberation. Not from her, but from the boy in you who thought love was earned by bleeding. That boy must die, so the man may rise. The man who knows that not every woman is a partner, that some are mirrors, trials, initiations. And when you stop trying to fix the Puella, when you stop pouring your essence into the bottomless cup of her becoming, you finally return to yourself. That is where your power lives, in choosing clarity over chaos, sovereignty over sympathy, reality over rescue. Let her stay in the clouds if she must. You, brother, were made for the storm, for the mountain, for the fire that burns illusions to ash.